You're just a babysitter with a degree, she laughed at Sunday dinner. Anyone can watch kids. I'm in pharmaceutical sales. My brother looked uncomfortable. 6 months later, she brought her kids to tour my newest Montessori academy. The waiting list was 2 years. Could you make an exception? She whispered. The question wasn't whether I'd accept Vanessa's twins into my school, it was whether she'd survive the parent interview where she'd have to explain her philosophy of early childhood education to the same person she called a glorified babysitter. The Sunday dinner that started it all was at my parents' house in Scottsdale. Mom had insisted on her famous pot roast, Dad had opened his good wine, and my brother Marcus had brought his new girlfriend, Vanessa Hartley, who walked in like she was appraising the house for a hostile takeover. So this is the family home, she'd said, her tone suggesting she'd expected more. Charming. Very, lived in. 28 years of memories, Mom had replied, missing the condescension entirely. Of course. Marcus mentioned you're very traditional. She'd smoothed her designer dress as she sat, claiming the chair like a throne. I'm more minimalist myself. Less clutter, clearer thinking. I'd watched from the kitchen, helping Mom with final preparations. Marcus caught my eye, his expression somewhere between apologetic and pleading. He'd been dating Vanessa for 3 months, long enough to be serious but not long enough to see past the pharmaceutical sales success to the person underneath. Natalie. Mom called. Come meet Vanessa properly. I'd dried my hands, prepared my nice-to-meet-you smile, and walked into what would become one of the most memorable dinners of my life. You must be the teacher, Vanessa had said before I could speak. Marcus mentioned you work with children. I do work with children, I'd agreed, taking my seat. That's so sweet. Someone has to do it, right? And with the teacher shortage, they probably take anyone with a degree these days. Marcus had shifted uncomfortably. Actually, Natalie has her master's in early childhood education from Columbia. Oh, a master's. Vanessa had interrupted, her laugh tinkling like broken glass. For teaching kindergarten? Isn't that like getting a PhD in finger painting? I focus on developmental psychology and educational methodology, I'd said mildly. Methodology for what? Making sure they don't eat the Play-Doh? She'd turned to my parents. I mean, good for her, finding something she can do. Not everyone's cut out for real careers. I'm in pharmaceutical sales myself. How interesting, Dad had said, though his tone suggested otherwise. It's incredibly demanding. I manage relationships with major hospital systems, negotiate million-dollar contracts. Real business, you know? Not just watching kids color inside the lines. Natalie does more than, Marcus had tried again. I'm sure she does. Someone has to tie their shoes and wipe their noses, right? Vanessa had sipped her wine. It's just funny, isn't it? You spend all that money on education to end up doing what any teenage babysitter does for $20 an hour. Funny, I'd agreed. Tell me about pharmaceutical sales. Do you enjoy it? She'd lit up like I'd asked about her Nobel Prize. It's exhilarating. The negotiations, the strategy, the real-world impact. Last quarter, I moved $3.2 million in diabetes medications. That's helping actual sick people, not just playing patty cake. Impressive. Which medications specifically? Oh, various brands. You wouldn't understand the names, they're quite technical. Try me. I studied biochemistry as an undergrad. She'd waved dismissively. It's not about the science. It's about the sale. The relationship building. The ability to influence decision makers. Skills you develop in the real world, not a classroom full of 5-year-olds. The dinner had continued in that vein. Every topic somehow circled back to Vanessa's superiority and my quaint little job. When Mom mentioned I'd won a state teaching award, Vanessa had cooed, how nice. They give awards for everything now, don't they? Participation trophy culture. When Dad brought up my published research on early childhood development, she'd laughed. Published where? Teachers Weekly? I'm published too, in the Pharma Sales Quarterly. It's about a new negotiation technique I pioneered. Marcus had grown quieter with each jab, his initial embarrassment hardening into something else. But he hadn't spoken up. Not when she called my work glorified daycare. Not when she suggested I'd chosen teaching because some people just aren't ambitious. Not even when she delivered the final blow over dessert. You know what the difference is between us? She'd asked, apropos of nothing. I'm building a career that matters. You're just a babysitter with a degree. Anyone can watch kids. Not everyone can close million-dollar deals. You're absolutely right, I'd said. Not everyone can do what you do. She'd missed the irony entirely. Exactly. See, Marcus? Your sister gets it. She understands her limitations. Natalie doesn't have limitations, Marcus had said quietly. You just don't understand what she actually does. Oh, sweetie. She'd patted his hand condescendingly. I know you want to defend your sister, and that's adorable. But let's be realistic. She makes, what, 40,000 a year? I made that in bonuses last quarter. She teaches kids to count to 10. I negotiate contracts worth more than she'll make in a lifetime. There's no comparison. You're right, I'd said again. There's no comparison. The rest of the evening had passed in a blur of Vanessa's self-aggrandizement. She'd left believing she'd put the small-town teacher in her place, shown Marcus's family what real success looked like. Marcus had apologized profusely after she'd gone. I had no idea she was like that, he'd said. She's different at work, more professional. She showed you who she is, I'd told him. Believe her. But he hadn't. Not then. Love, or whatever he'd called it, made him deaf to the warning signs. They'd moved in together 2 months later, got engaged 2 months after that. Vanessa had made sure everyone knew her ring cost more than certain people's annual salaries. What Vanessa didn't know during that dinner, what Marcus had intentionally kept vague, was that I hadn't taught in a traditional classroom for 3 years. My little teaching job had evolved into something else entirely. It had started with frustration. After 5 years in public schools, watching brilliant kids get left behind by underfunded systems and overwhelmed teachers, I'd taken a leap. One small Montessori school in suburban Phoenix started with my savings and a loan that had terrified my parents. Children's Garden had opened with 12 students and me doing everything: teaching, cleaning, marketing, praying the bills would get paid. But something magical happened when you combined real educational methodology with genuine care for children's development. Parents noticed. Word spread. Enrollment grew. By the time Vanessa was insulting me over pot roast, Children's Garden had become Blossom Academy Group, 12 schools across Arizona and Southern California, with 3 more under construction. We employed 300 teachers, served 2,000 students, and had waiting lists that stretched years into the future. My babysitting business generated 8 figures annually. But I'd learned early that mentioning success to people like Vanessa only invited competition or dismissal. Better to let them believe their own narratives while I built my empire one child at a time. 6 months after that dinner, my assistant knocked on my office door at the flagship Phoenix location. Natalie? There's a Vanessa Morrison here for a tour. She says she's your sister-in-law. Morrison. She'd taken Marcus's name. Send her to conference room B. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I took my time, reviewing her application. Twins, age 4. Currently at a traditional preschool but seeking a more enriching environment. Emergency contact, Marcus Morrison. Interesting that she'd applied without mentioning the family connection. When I entered the conference room, Vanessa looked different. The designer clothes remained, but something in her posture had changed. Beside her sat 2 small boys, identical down to their worried expressions. Vanessa, I said warmly. What a surprise. These must be your boys. Her face cycled through several emotions before settling on forced pleasantness. Natalie. I didn't realize. Marcus said you worked at a school, but this? She gestured at the visible parts of the campus through the window, the organic garden, the art studio, the state-of-the-art playground. This is incredible. Thank you. I see you're interested in our program for the twins. Yes. Well, you see. She fidgeted, an action I'd never seen from her. We've had some challenges at their current school. Challenges? They're very bright. Too bright, apparently. They're bored, acting out. The teacher suggested medication, but I've researched alternatives, and Montessori kept coming up. Then I found out Blossom Academy has the best reputation in the state, and... She trailed off, realization dawning. You're not just a teacher here, are you? I have various roles, I said mildly. One of the twins, Aiden, according to the application, looked up at me. Are you the boss of the school? Something like that, I said, crouching to his level. What makes you ask? Mommy said we need to impress the boss so we can come here. His honesty was refreshing after his mother's pharmaceutical sales polish. Well, I'm already impressed. You asked a very good question. I turned to his brother. And what's your name? Andrew, he whispered. Welcome, Andrew. Would you like to see our butterfly garden while your mom and I talk? Both boys looked to Vanessa, who nodded uncertainly. I called in Maria, our childhood development specialist, who led them out with promises of caterpillars and snacks. Once alone, Vanessa's facade cracked. I need this school, Natalie. I've toured 7 others. They're all full or, they rejected the boys. Rejected? That's unusual for 4-year-olds. They're challenging. Very smart but very active. They need more than traditional preschool offers. She paused. More than a babysitter with a degree. Ah, I'm sorry. For that dinner. For everything I said. The words came out rushed, desperate. I was awful. You were honest about your opinions. I was an insecure bitch trying to impress your family by putting you down. She made my ice. Marcus told me, after we married. About your schools. About what you've built. I felt like such an idiot. Yet you still applied without mentioning the connection? Would you have seen me if I had? Fair point. Tell me about your boys. Really tell me. Not the application version. For the next hour, Vanessa talked. Really talked. About twins who'd started reading at 3 but couldn't sit still for circle time. Who built complex Lego creations but struggled with social cues. Who asked endless questions that exhausted teachers expecting compliance over curiosity. Every school wants them to be less, she said finally. Less curious. Less active. Less themselves. I watched them dimming, and Her voice cracked. I realized I'd become someone who valued the wrong things. Who mocked the very people who could help my children. And what do you value now? Someone who sees my boys as more than problems to solve. Someone who understands that teaching isn't about making kids fit the system but creating systems that fit kids, she laughed bitterly. Turns out the babysitter with a degree knew that all along. Montessori philosophy isn't for everyone, I said carefully. It requires parental involvement. Understanding. Respect for the process. I'll do whatever it takes. Even parent education classes? Weekly involvement requirements? Volunteering in classrooms? Yes. Even if the teacher leading those classes is someone you once called unambitious? She flushed. Especially then. I stood, walked to the window overlooking the playground. Maria had the twins engaged with magnifying glasses, examining something in the garden. They were absorbed, peaceful in a way that suggested their challenges might just be undirected gifts. We have a 2-year waiting list, I said. Vanessa's shoulders slumped. I understand. But we also have a new accelerated program starting next month. For gifted children who need additional challenges. It requires an extensive parent interview, commitment to our philosophy, and absolute respect for our educators. Interview with who? Me, typically. I oversee all special program admissions. She stood slowly. You're the founder. The actual founder of all 12 schools. 13, actually. We're opening in San Diego next month. Jesus. She sank back down. Marcus said you were successful, but this? You're not just a teacher. You're an educational revolutionary. I'm a teacher who got tired of seeing potential wasted. Everything else grew from that. I turned back to her. Your boys deserve better than they're getting. But I need to know you understand what better means here. It means trusting the professionals I once dismissed. It means learning that there's more to education than metrics. It means. She swallowed hard. It means admitting I was completely, utterly wrong about everything. The interview is next Wednesday. Bring both boys. Plan for 3 hours. We'll be there. She stood to leave, then turned back. Natalie? That dinner, did you know? What I'd face with the twins. I knew you'd have children eventually. I knew those children would need more than pharmaceutical sales strategies and negotiation tactics. I hoped you'd learn what really matters before it was too late. Almost too late. Almost only counts in horseshoes and educational awakening. She laughed, surprising us both. Marcus said you were gracious. He undersold it. I'm not gracious. I'm practical. Your boys need what we offer. You need to learn what we teach. The past is just prologue. Wednesday's interview went better than expected. Vanessa arrived humbled and prepared. She'd read Maria Montessori's work, observed at other schools, spoken with current parents. When I asked about her educational philosophy, she said simply, I don't have one yet. That's why I'm here. To learn. The twins thrived in assessment. Aiden showed remarkable mathematical intuition. Andrew demonstrated artistic perception beyond his years. Both displayed the kind of divergent thinking that traditional schools often punish but we cultivate. We'll accept them, I announced at the end. Provisional enrollment, contingent on parental participation. Vanessa cried. Actually cried. Thank you. I know I don't deserve, this isn't about what you deserve. It's about what they need. Don't mistake my decision for forgiveness. You'll earn that through actions, not tears. I understand. The twins started the following month. Vanessa threw herself into parental involvement with the fervor of someone atoning for sins. She volunteered for everything, attended every workshop, asked questions that showed genuine growth. 3 months in, she cornered me after a parent education session. I owe you another apology. Only one? I've been in pharmaceutical sales for 10 years. I thought I understood influence, relationships, value creation. She gestured around the classroom, where children worked independently on chosen projects. This is real influence. You're shaping minds that will shape the world. I was selling pills. You're building futures. Both have their place. No. Don't minimize what you do to make me feel better. I spent years believing money equaled worth, that traditional success was the only success. You've built something that matters in ways I'm only beginning to understand. And your boys? Her face lit up. They're different children. Not easier, God, no. But engaged. Excited. Aiden's working 3 grade levels ahead in math. Andrew's art. His teacher thinks he has real talent. They come home talking about their work like it matters because here, it does. Every child's work matters. That's the point. I know that now. I'm trying to know it, anyway. Unlearning takes time. It did take time. But Vanessa became one of our most involved parents. She used her sales skills to fundraise, her network to expand our reach, her newfound humility to support other parents struggling with gifted children. At the end of year showcase, where students presented their projects, she found me again. Look at them, she said, watching her boys explain their shared research on butterfly metamorphosis. They're confident. Capable. Themselves. They always were. They just needed the right environment. They always were. They just needed the right environment. And the right educator. Someone who saw them as more than problems. She paused. Someone I dismissed as just a babysitter with a degree. We all have our blind spots. Mine was more like a blind highway. With billboards. She turned to face me. Marcus wants to have a baby. I'm terrified I'll pass on my old values. That I'll create another Vanessa who judges worth by paychecks. The fact that you're worried suggests you won't. Maybe. Or maybe I'll need another Sunday dinner intervention. Another reminder that the most important work often looks the least impressive. She smiled. Think you'll still be babysitting by then? Someone has to. Apparently, anyone can do it. She laughed, full and genuine. God, I was such an ass. How did you stand it? I thought about the future. About moments like this. About children like yours finding their potential despite adults' limitations. I watched Andrew demonstrate brush techniques to a younger student, patient and kind. Worth the wait. Even the 2-year waiting list? Especially that. Good things take time. Children teach us that every day. Along with humility, patience, and the knowledge that pharmaceutical sales skills mean nothing to a 4-year-old mid-meltdown. Now you're learning. As we watched our students, my students, her children, showcase their growth, I reflected on the journey. From that painful dinner to this moment of possibility. From dismissal to respect. From blindness to sight. Vanessa had been wrong about one thing but right about another. Anyone could watch kids. But not everyone could see them, nurture them, guide them toward their potential. Not everyone could build schools that changed lives, including the lives of parents who thought they knew everything. Not everyone could transform just babysitting into an educational revolution. But then again, I'd never been just anything. Even when serving pot roast to pharmaceutical salespeople who couldn't see past their own assumptions. Especially then.